I do hypnosis trainings. Not everybody is in the room. Excuse me. Not everybody's in the room with that goal of saying, "I want to open up shop and be a hypnotist." Here's the nurse who's in the space, and they're going, "I just need better strategies for patient compliance." Here's the personal trainer who's going, "I'm having people do repetitive actions while I'm talking to them." Clearly, there's some sort of hypnotic communication. Somebody in business, whether it's real estate, whether it's speaking or education, to recognize that, again, there's this quality of presentation that we're able to achieve. And if we're able to go in with a few ethical secret weapons to become much more direct in our conversation, that's when we become even more effective in conveying that message. So my sort of turning point was typing out the sentence, which was that for a lot of what I had done up until a few years ago, that I was representing myself as the business names. So the local business is Virginia Hypnosis, because I'm in Virginia and I do hypnosis. Beautiful name. And the gods of Google opened up and I got the website. The name of the hypnosis training business may sound slightly familiar because the book is Work Smart Business. And that's a branding I've been using for years because the hypnosis training business is Work Smart Hypnosis. And it was where over time realizing that, again, that message that I was already sharing, recognizing that as soon as I broke away from trying to represent it as another business name, and as soon as I embraced that, wait a minute, I became the brand. The brand was always the common denominator was that it was Jason Linett. And as soon as I realized I had become the brand, and it was my responsibility to enhance that brand of me, that's when things tripled in a short amount of time. That's when things really took off. So from the writing side of things, what is that unique perspective that you have? What is that voice that you can share that is every reason why someone should be listening to you?
Huh. See, and that's so what you're saying is we should expect a lot more selfies on Instagram from Jason Linett.
There's that, but also one of the principles in the book is to keep balance, to not become a slave to your business, to embrace the power of making a new entrance to sharpen your business skills. So it's where I tend to intention is a big aspect of what I do. So like today, I'm in the office and I'm chatting with you. I've got a series of other clients I'm working with today, and then when I go home, I'm home. I shut it down. I'm not working during those time frames. I'm not taking the family time away. When we go on a vacation, we really go on a vacation. So rather than, the whole Michael Gerber line from E-Myth Revisited of working on your business rather than in your business, but also have time to step away from the business because it's often when you come back, it comes back even stronger. That's how exercise works. You are putting stress on the muscles of the body, whether it's the muscles themselves or the muscle of the heart, and then there's a brief recovery period, and then assuming you're getting the appropriate rest and proper nutrition, there's a period of time called supercompensation. And that's that little bit of evolutionary science in our bodies that goes, hey, he's lifting heavy stuff. I should make this muscle grow bigger. And it's that time away is where the strength really establishes. So as much as we're in the business working, to take that time away, to turn it off, and it's often by doing so we come back much more focused, much more empowered, or sometimes it's that time away that this idea pops into the mind to go, oh, I should do it this way. And that's where just politely I pull out my phone, open up the Notes app, and just kind of take a note of something, and then, yeah, I'll hit that later.
Huh. See, that's a good way to look at it. That's a great way to look at it. That's anyone who wants to grow a business, their brands, start up, or just themselves professionally, or even just intrigued by the notion, Work Smart Business, lessons learned from hypnotizing 250,000 people and building $1 million brand. January 27, 2019. Go online now at worksmartbusiness.com/write, WRITE, like Write It Out Radio, as you said before. Like I'm name dropping myself.
There you go.
Is that good brand development, or am I doing that right?
Hi, I'm Troy McClure.
Hi, I'm Troy McClure. You might remember me from that guy who interviewed Jason Linett. He was better than me. But I was there too, I promise. And all right, so we spoke last week, and I like to close my shows with a game. And now, my great creativeness, being this writer that I am, I could not think of anything, and you brought up a game. that was a good exercise.
Yes.
And so I say we dive into that, and I want to see how terrible I do.
I wonder how much better I'll get this with practice. There you go. And I mentioned too that going to that website we mentioned, worksmartbusiness.com/write, WRITE. One of the segments of the book you're going to get from me in advance by email actually teaches this is a strategy and gives some very specific examples, whether it's personal change, whether it's professional change, or whether it's positive ethical influence. And it's a standard strategy that many people are already aware of, but we're going to put a little spin on it to make it more effective. And it's called pacing and leading. And the strategy is pacing. Let's define pacing first of all. Pacing is simply, in this dialogue, to state something that is either sensory, verifiably true, or to reiterate something that we've already verified as true. There's the crazy technical definition. Let's simplify it. If I were to make the statement that you and I are having a wonderful conversation, which we are, but the word wonderful would be applying a judgment, which by saying that, it drives you inside that question, is it really wonderful? The same as I'm in a very different location than you are right now. And if I made the assumption that, and I made the statement, it's cold where you are, you'd have to drive your thoughts inside consciously to analyze, is it cold? Well, it's kind of neutral right now. It's room temperature, I guess. That's not really cold to me. But if I said instead, again, sometimes by saying less is saying more. If I simply said, you can notice the temperature of the air in the room. That's absolutely true. You can do that because there's no judgment attached to it. It's not driving you to look for a critique of something. Or to reiterate something that has already happened. We've talked about The Simpsons, which in the shape of this conversation, we've done that. So that's pacing. And what this does is it builds an ethical little yes step, a yes set in the person's mind. Well, you can notice the and these two necessarily would not go together, but here's an example based on ones I've just mentioned. You can notice the temperature of the air in the room as we're having this conversation, and we've already talked about The Simpsons. Those are three things that are just facts at this point, which establishes a momentum to then introduce a leading statement, or as we would phrase it in my world, a hypnotic suggestion or a bit of ethical influence. Notice that, again, I'm always going to put those two words together. The old catchphrase in business that anybody can sell something once. My business models are all based upon raving fans rather than lifelong dependents. So we're looking to get that suggestion to lead in a direction that is going to be mutually beneficial for the both of us. So that just becomes a suggestion for change or some sort of action. So let's put this into a context as if I was talking directly to you. Here's an example. Well, we've been talking for about an hour now and bringing up all sorts of interesting references, so you're realizing that learning business from interesting resources can really help you to grow, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what did I do? I reiterated, it's working already. I reiterated the things that were already true, and the leading statements of the reiterations was we've been talking for about an hour and talking about learning from creative sources, which means you're looking to learn from even more creative sources to grow your business, right? Yes. So
Correct.
The game as this becomes, you can also now restate the leading statement as your next pacing statement. And because you're interested in learning from more unique sources, you're realizing that perhaps a hypnotist can help you to grow your business. And because a hypnotist makes use of creative strategies to effect a change, you're realizing your own creativity can be that catalyst in the growth of your own success, right? And there's sometimes the game of the tag question at the end to get that buy-in once in there once again. So the whole key to this is that I'm using things that we've already verified together. So let's take this out of the context for our game, and let's say we are speaking now to this audience. And correct me here, a lot of your audience are people in the Write It Out podcast are people who are, of course, interested in reading quality books, but also at the same time are perhaps, let's phrase it as incubating at the moment before they hatch their own creative process. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, which I'm not doing it right now. The game is like, are you
say it's working?
Are you doing this to me? So let's say you and I are now going to become the two-headed motivational coach for your audience to realize their readiness to get out there and share their own story. How about that?
All right, I got my windbreakers on. I got my Adidas sweatpants. I'm ready. Let's go.
Awesome,
Let's coach these boys.
fantastic. I got my shaker
and
bottle,
girls.
and we're good. So I'll kick us off, and again, you can either use your pacing statement of something that I've now said, or here we are, we've been talking for a little over an hour, we've got the entire data bank of this communication. So value first, and then pivot into the actual offer is part of the model that we're making use of here. And again, it's you and I together teaming up to talk to the audience. So because you've been listening to this, let me start over. Because you've been listening to this program, that means you're realizing that there's a story inside of you that deserves to be told. Your turn.
All right, so now I'm not as good at this as you are, so let's see. Since you've listened to this program, you're realizing that hold on, I'm getting it. You got more experience. Hold on.
I've done it several times.
Well, this is my first. Be gentle. You are realizing that hypnotism is more about advancing over mental barriers than barking like a dog, right?
It is. And because it's about advancing beyond mental barriers, you realize that you can break through your own blocks to start writing your own story.
And since you're writing your own story, you've learned from listening to this podcast that what you start with may not exactly be your finished product. Right?
Right. And I can paraphrase that. And because that journey continues to change along the way, you're realizing the value of subscribing to this podcast series to hear many more interesting stories to enhance your motivation.
And for some subscribing to this podcast, you realize that you will be hearing more about The Simpsons. No? Is that one?
Let's move toward. Let's make the leading statement the suggestion for writing. Let's keep in that context.
You got me watching The Simpsons now. That's it. I'm my own series the minute we get off this phone. So, from subscribing to this podcast, you realize that you'll be hearing from many other guests, as well as more from Jason Linett in the future. I can guarantee that will help you grow as a creator.
And as you grow as a creator, you realize that it's that combination of your own experience and your own personal perspective that's every reason you can start writing today, even if it's just simply doing an outline or sticking a whole bunch of Post-its in a crazy way on the wall.
And you realize that in not all scenarios that crazy Post-its on the wall does not necessarily make you a serial killer. That's important for people to know. I don't know if that's part of the game or not. It's just important for people to know. Even if one of those Post-its are labeled as evidence destroyed with a check mark.
These views do not reflect the views of the guest. And as you're looking at those sticky things on the wall, sometimes you realize one of your ideas is your second book. You're going to be ready to write after the first is completed.
And sometimes, looking at those ideas on the wall, you realize that the new idea you just found may help reshape the book you're working on now, which is perfectly fine. Right?
Yes. And as you're...
I feel like you're crushing me in this.
And as you're reshaping that idea, you're realizing exactly not only how to write your book, but also who are those people that most need to hear your message.
And you're realizing that by liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment will help us better get the message to you for you to hear more people like Jason Linett in his new book, Work Smart Business, Lessons Learned from Hypnotizing 250,000 People,